business of the House to resume. The House has so far considered one private member's motion that was moved by Kabwe Central Member of Parliament, Ms. Chrysosta Halwindi. 3 committee reports. The first one that was moved by Siavonga Member of Parliament, Mr. Dalius Molunda, urging the House to adopt the report of the Parliamentary Select Committee appointed to scrutinize the ministerial appointment of Mr. Mumanga Moden Maembe to serve as the Director of the Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation ZNBC Board for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 26 March 2024. And this report was seconded by Chama South Member of Parliament, Mr. Davison Mongandu, and this motion has been adopted. The second one was moved by Momba Member of Parliament, Mr. Fred Jatila, urging the House to adopt the report of the Planning and Budgeting Committee on the review of the third and fourth quarter. Just now we take you to the floor.
When business was suspended, the House had just finished considering the Constituency Development Fund Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2023. Next order.
The Animal Identification and Traceability Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2, 2024, report stage.
The Acting Honorable Minister of Fisheries and Livestock.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the report of the committee be adopted.
As no notice has been received on any further amendment, it is your will that the report of the committee be adopted. Any objection? I see none. Report adopted. Day for third reading.
Now, Mr. Speaker.
Third reading of the bill to be taken now. The Acting Minister of Fisheries and Livestock.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be read the third time.
The question is that the bill be read the third time. Any debate, any objection? The question is agreed to. Let the bill be read the third time.
The Animal Identification and Traceability Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2024.
Next order.
Thanks, His Excellency the President's address. Motion of 19th March, resumption of debate.
When the House adjourned yesterday, Tuesday, 26th March 2024, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honourable Member for Chama South that the thanks of this Assembly be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in His Excellency the President's address. Any further debate? Order. I've just received an announcement. Honorable members, you will recall that 19th March 2024, when debate on the motion of thanks commenced, the House was informed that the backbenchers would debate the motion for 5 days, while the executive will respond in the last 2 days. In this regard, I wish to inform the House that the debate for the backbenchers ended yesterday. And for today and tomorrow, the executive will respond. However, if an opportunity allows, I will use my discretion to call upon the backbenchers to debate. I thank you. So I'll pick two backbenchers in this regard, the Honorable Member for Massa Central and the Honorable Member for Mitete. Then we go to the ministers. The Honorable Member for Massa Central.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in fulfillment of the constitutional provisions in Article 9 and 86(1), His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema addressed the House, and through the House the nation, on the application of values and progress on application of values and principles. He premised his address, Mr. Speaker, on the 6 values as outlined in Article 8, morality and ethics, patriotism and national unity, democracy and constitutionalism, human dignity, equity, social justice, equality, and non-discrimination and good governance. Mr. Speaker, I'll confine my debate to just 4 of those principles, beginning with morality and ethics, and I'll move to patriotism and national unity, and then to human dignity, and finally to issues of climate change. Mr. Speaker, the President, in addressing issues of morality and ethics, talked about alcohol abuse and substance misuse. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, senior colleague, Dr. Kalila did speak about the impact of substance and alcohol abuse on mental health. I'll push it further today to talk about other non-communicable diseases. Mr. Speaker, alcohol abuse or irresponsible consumption of alcohol works with other risk factors in physical inactivity, poor diets, tobacco abuse, in pushing non-communicable diseases forward. Mr. Speaker, today we have a lot of middle-aged young men, productive young men, who are succumbing prematurely to non-communicable diseases. There are many stories we hear day in, day out of a person just collapsing, and in late terms they just say the artery burst in the head and they collapsed, or they never woke up, or they just collapsed. Mr. Speaker, non-communicable diseases are causing poverty in the country. Non-communicable diseases are taking away economically productive people. Breadwinners in the families are disappearing due to premature deaths because of non-communicable diseases. Alcohol abuse is one such factor that contributes to non-communicable diseases. The President is spot on in speaking strongly against alcohol abuse. Apart from promoting mental health disorders, alcohol abuse is contributing significantly to other non-communicable diseases that I've talked about. These include hypertension, chronic respiratory disorders, including cancers. Mr. Speaker, we should all work together to combat alcohol abuse. Mr. Speaker, the President, in talking about patriotism, spoke about the importance of unity and also expressing patriotism by producing local and consuming local. This needs our collective support. Mr. Speaker, when you produce local goods and you buy local, you are creating jobs, you are growing the GDP, you are keeping the money in the country, you prevent capital flight. Mr. Speaker, even contract management is easier. The President's directive to the Ministries of Health, Home Affairs, and Defense to ensure local procurement is supported. It is therefore expected that as we talk about medicines, as we talk about many other medical products, let us ensure that we mop what is procured, what is made locally, so that we are able to grow the economy. Mr. Speaker, I support the President's call for local ownership and local production and local consumption. Mr. Speaker, on page 11, the President spoke about human dignity in the context of social determinants of health. He spoke about increasing access to water and sanitation. This is fundamentally important. It will help us stop infectious diseases such as cholera and typhoid. This is critical. We need to work together as a collective to translate our huge water body mass in the country into access to clean and safe water and avert infectious diseases such as cholera and typhoid. Mr. Speaker, as we talk about sustainable development, we could as well speak about social determinants of health. The President addressed these very clearly from page 11, page 12, and page 13 as he spoke about nutrition, as he spoke about education and household income. This is firmly supported, and we need to ensure that we push towards universal access to education, and we need to push for nutrition, especially for the first 1,000 days. Household income, as he spoke about, social cash transfer, is critical as this is a key primary health care determinant. Mr. Speaker, as the President spoke about sustainable development, he touched on climate change. The single biggest threat to human health today is climate change. Mr. Speaker, through extremes of weather, through flooding, through drought, through heat or global warming, people are exposed to various diseases, infectious diseases. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that we address climate change now, even as we talk about food security. If we believe in future generations, we need to manage the environment today and ensure that we protect both the current and future generations. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I want to emphasize that the President's statement, policy statement, as he addressed the nation, was spot on. We must, however, reduce the gap between what the President says and what we do as the executive to ensure we implement this. We must not subtract from the presidential speech. The President has given direction that we must procure local. Let us not see procurement of medicines that we can make locally from outside. Mr. Speaker, the President has said these values must be the glue that bind us as a nation. Let us ensure in all we do, we avoid discrimination. And as we talk about sustainable development, let us pitch climate change at the apex of our political discourse, because we need to invest in our current and future generations. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to support the motion.
Thank you. The Honourable Member from Itete.
Mr. Speaker, I do not take lightly your discretion. I value. That means I equally need to use my time nicely. I may take few minutes on the progress.
You can take 4 because it's not your day, and Honorable Mambazi, Bwana Mkubwa can take 4 as well.
Humbled. Progress made on the national values and principles. Progress. It touched on, like the immediate speaker, morality, character, as an individual or in a group, a nation. Allow me pick character. Vis-a-vis alcohol, in some language, junta, kachaso, lituku. It has an effect on character. As an individual, as a team, or as a nation. As a village headman, as any leader, alcohol has an effect on the character. As a nation, it can help direct or confuse the nation. at national level. Currently, do we have progress in these values? Yes. Zambia's debt is no more. It's now in the restructuring. It's done. Meaning you have more room for what he touched on. CDF. If even when the Python was there, the increase in CDF from 2021 to 2024 was increased. Now the Python is not there. We wait, Mr. Speaker, to see what will follow. When the Python was there, the Minister of Finance was just mentioning today of 30,000 teachers, 7,000, 11 health workers, 4,000. What, in some other quarters, what gonna happen? Since you gave me 4 minutes, and being sincere, we are seeing progress in the national values and principles, starting with individual character. You shall know them by their character, their deeds, their works. Mr. Speaker, even new drawn government shall be known by their character and deeds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Bwanamkubwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me indeed to debate on the presidential speech on the progress made on application of national values and principles. And Mr. Speaker, I will restrict myself to just maybe 3 items: gender-based violence, social media, and patriotism and unity. Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful, and let me on the onset support and also agree with the intervention measures which the executive is putting in place to ensure that gender-based violence is kept, because it determines the health and dignity of victims. And Mr. Speaker, if we look at the statistics between 2023 and 2024, we've seen that there's a reduction in terms of gender-based violence cases, and also the government has provided a lot of counseling and legal support to over 7,800 cases, and we do commend and agree with these submissions and also which the intervention measures that the government is doing. Mr. Speaker, I'll quickly run to issue of social media. Social media, Mr. Speaker, has become the integral part of our lives. However, acknowledging that social media has been also abused by various circles in this country, which essentially, Mr. Speaker, is supposed to be used for business, education, and social interaction. But however, in line with the increased trends of abuse of social media, Mr. Speaker, we thank the executive that measures are being put in place to ensure that the National Information and Technology policies, which guide some of these issues to do with social media, to ensure that our children and our youths can be protected, and also to ensure that data privacy and protection is also adhered to, which is a very, very positive move, Mr. Speaker, which is being done by the government. Mr. Speaker, if I quickly move to patriotism and unity, I think it's important that even as we support the local industries and local products, the citizens of this country also adhere to ensure that taxes are paid, to ensure that we do not deplete the tax base, to ensure that as patriotic citizens, we ensure that we report would-be defaulters of taxes, because if taxes are not paid, then we deplete our domestic resource mobilization, Mr. Speaker, which ensures that government cannot undertake projects in the country to do with education. Even the same CDF we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, all these funds come through payment of taxes, in which we ensure that we have an effective domestic resource mobilization in the country. Mr. Speaker, I just thought of adding those few words to this motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice on the presidential address regarding progress made in the application of the national values and principles. Allow me to first start by commending His Excellency, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the President of the Republic of Zambia, for a well-thought-through address that is non-political and has been appreciated by all well-meaning Zambians across the country. Mr. Speaker, the President touched on many issues that aim at promoting the welfare of the people of Zambia. The following are some of the comments on the national values and principles highlighted in the comprehensive presidential address. Mr. Speaker, the government is concerned with instances of social vices such as early child marriage, teenage pregnancy, alcohol and substance abuse, and gender-based violence in our country. To this effect, Mr. Speaker, the government has put in place effective interventions aimed at addressing the stated challenges using a multi-sectorial approach. The following are some of the interventions being implemented: training peer educators to help raise awareness on negative consequences of child marriage. Engaging community-based organizations to implement life skills and health education in out-of-school adolescents. Supporting youth endeavors by providing funds to facilitate engagement with community leaders. Conducting research in southern and eastern provinces to ascertain proportion of teenage pregnancies attributed to child marriage and birth outcomes of child marriage. Raising awareness on poor health outcomes of child marriage, including HIV, GBV, and mental health illness. Establishment of adolescent spaces at health facilities and community levels. Development and distribution of various information, education, and communication materials using multimedia platforms. Targeting parents, religious, and traditional leaders on health issues affecting young people and the need for the parents to take responsibility in raising awareness among their children. We've intensified multi-sectorial involvement through technical working groups from the national level right to service delivery points and the community to address the different facets of challenges that young people encounter. Strengthening capacity for healthcare workers through training in adolescent health for pre-service and postgraduate training. Mr. Speaker, gender-based violence has got negative consequences on the health of individuals as it affects the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of individuals and society. The country continues to record an increase in the number of statistics for GBV, and it is therefore continues to be a matter of public health concern. In order to mitigate the impact of GBV on the health of individuals, the government will continue to strengthen the health systems to be gender responsive through training of health workers in clinical management of survivors of GBV, mainstreaming gender in all health programs, strengthen the coordination of one-stop centers for purposes of providing quality services to the victims and providing the budget allocation for gender mainstreaming purposes in order to attain a gender-responsive health system. Mr. Speaker, harmful use of alcohol and substance use continues to be a major public health concern. The Ministry of Health, in particular, is overwhelmed with increased disease burden attributed to alcohol and substance use, notably among adolescents and young people. It is worth noting that Zambia successfully hosted the African Union high-level session on alcohol, drug, and substance use among children, adolescents, and women. This session attracted member states, technocrats, and young people to deliberate on statistics or on strategies aimed at addressing issues of alcohol, drugs, and substance use. In order to address this problem, government through the Ministry of Health is implementing interventions aimed at strengthening promotion, prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation, and government through Ministry of Health has specifically focused on the following. We've intensified awareness campaigns through various platforms. We've improved the supply and availability of medicines for the treatment of mental health conditions. We've scaled up the treatment and counseling services in all provinces on alcohol, substance use, and mental health. Treatment protocols and guidelines have also been developed and disseminated for use by health workers to manage alcohol, substance use, and mental health disorders. We've strengthened capacity, mentorships, and supervision for primary health care workers, and also recruitment of mental health personnel in previous recruitments. In addition, government is in the process of operationalization of the Mental Health Act No. 6 of 2019, which will facilitate the implementation of mental health services in the country. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to enhance national unity, the new Dawn administration has ensured that the recruitment of public service workers, among them health personnel, is based on merit as well as transparently done in all districts across the country to ensure equal opportunities for all. Mr. Speaker, the recruitment of health personnel demonstrates the new Dawn's administration's commitment to create employment and at the same time ensure that the patient to healthcare provider ratio is favorable for government to deliver quality, cost-effective healthcare services as close to our people as possible. Mr. Speaker, the equitable distribution of public resources by the new Dawn administration is further demonstrated in the timely disbursement of CDF funds to all the rural and urban constituencies across the country. The CDF has made an impact in a lot of sectors such as health, education, local government, and rural development, to mention but a few. Through this flagship intervention under the Enhanced Constituency Development Fund, we expect to see equity, equality, and social justice being restored. Mr. Speaker, the presidential address further highlighted the importance of addressing social determinants of health with special focus on the provision of water supply and sanitation services to ensure that outbreaks of waterborne diseases such as cholera and typhoid are reduced in our communities. As I conclude, I wish to remind the House that the national values and principles provide the minimum standards that we should respect in our interactions and provision of services to the citizenry. I therefore wish to support the President's address as it is progressive and apolitical. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the presidential address on the progress made on the application of national values and principles delivered on the 15th March 2024. Allow me to draw your attention to page 16 of the speech, where the President talked about corruption. Mr. Speaker, values are shared beliefs about what is good and acceptable, as well as what is bad and how people generally should act or behave in everyday life. A principle, on the other hand, is a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of beliefs or behavior that serves as a guide for acceptable behavior. Our national values, therefore, become commonly held ideas about what might be reasonable, acceptable, and beneficial, not only to an individual, but to all citizens. Laws and regulations may change with the passage of time, but principles do not change. Mr. Speaker, our Constitution reflects certain values that form the core of our political system and governance structures. These values guide not only government, but also to citizens and the society at large. If society celebrates individuals that are corrupt, violent, dishonest, and morally bankrupt, then there is something fundamentally wrong with that society. Therefore, the fight against corruption and other vices affecting governance in our nation is everyone's responsibility. Mr. Speaker, on page 17, the President talked about continued digital transformation. Integration of digital technology into our operations has fundamentally changed how we do business and deliver values to our clients. Though we may have one or two gaps, this is understandable whenever new interventions are made to a change process. Digital transformation is a cultural change that requires organization to continually change the status quo, experiment, and keep on improving. In land administration and natural resources management, we are doing precisely that. Allow me to inform you, Mr. Speaker, that Ministry deployed the Zambia Integrated Land Administration System called ZIRAS to replace the Zambia Integrated Land Management Information System, ZILMIS, as part of the digital transformation agenda of government. Migration of data from ZILMIS to ZIRAS was done successfully. The Ministry is currently digitalized all the land records. Further, 60 services have so far been digitalized and deployed on the government service bus, which is called GSB. The Ministry facilitated the introduction of the Bill Master online pay system. To this end, 305 ZIRAS end users have been training and sensitization of public on mode of accessing services and products from the Ministry, who continue using various media platforms. The benefits of digital transformations are many. For instance, there has been an improvement in revenue collection and decongestion at the Ministry headquarters for people seeking to our services. Mr. Speaker, on page 17, the President informed the House and the nation at large on the progress made on the decentralization. The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources devolved the deeds registry functions to Chipata, Choma, and other offices in Lusaka. The stories and Kawe have been gazetted, awaiting operationalization. It is envisaged that devolution of functions will bring the services closer to the people. In an effort to bring the service closer to the people, the Ministry has decentralized the district registry in Chipata and Choma. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to respond to our colleagues who were talking about that the speech was horrible. To me, Mr. Speaker, we do analytical procedure, analysis. When you compare the country we were in for 10 years past to the 2 years, now going into almost 3 years, when you compare the two, there is a great difference. Previously, the country was purely divided on tribal lines. Hooliganism was the order of the day. In short, there was no respect for human life. Segregation on tribal lines was seen very clearly, written on every wall where you went. And then people stand and try to defend, as I've said earlier on, that people celebrate corruption, who celebrate these vices, then they belong to another tribe, another country that has no respect for humankind. The president has demonstrated in his speech and in his deeds that he is uniting this country. When you look at the cabinet, when you look at the administration, permanent secretaries, when you look at the employment of soldiers, teachers, it is everywhere, every corner of the country. There are no restrictions. But before, just a mere tribe, you are removed from government, and some of them are still languishing, and the government is trying to find how to bring them back. There was no rule of law. But today, the country is reconstructed. There is peace and safety. It is assured in every corner of Zambia. We enjoy, now we are even proud to be Zambians. But before, it was difficult to celebrate your citizenship. You couldn't openly. You could be hacked. Personally, in my own constituency, as an MP, I was not allowed to conduct meetings. I was arrested several times. I could not even jump on a council vehicle when I'm attending CDF meetings. I could even ring the vice president by then, a lady. She could do nothing. They were ordering the police. An inspector became in charge of a government. Inspector of the police. Everything that you did in the constituency, you need to get permission from a policeman. And today, people are standing up and challenging this good governance demonstrated by our president. Look at the CDF. It's everywhere. From 1.6 to 30 million. Look at what it's doing. Look at the benefits to every Zambian. Look at the fertilizer distribution. Look at the respect that is given to every Zambian without looking at the tribe. There is inclusiveness. Zambia now is a beautiful country. And to crown it all, I say well done, Minister of Finance. Take this message to the President of the Republic of Zambia, Hakainde, the man who has demonstrated that he is a unifier. People are thinking he's a tribalist man. Very, very different from their assertion. The man carefully chooses people to work with. A man includes everyone in Zambia. Even today, if OPF say you want to become UPND, you are most welcome. Most welcome. And we even give you appointments. And that's what we want. But he tolerates. He wants to hear divergent views, like we are doing. Most of you are contributing positively. That's what we want. This country has become a very peaceful country to live in. We even become proud. And this restructuring, it has brought perfume to this country. Smelling nice. Very nice. I want to wear it every day. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much. Meaning forever. This man should be given to complete his 2 terms. You will change the thinking of Zambians. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Minister of Water Development and Sanitation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the speech by the President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, on the progress achieved in the application of the national values and principles. Mr. Speaker, in particular to the water and sanitation sector, the speech delivered to this August House on Friday, 15th March 2024. Allow me to echo the fact that water plays a significant role in the development agenda of our country. As you are aware, water is a driver and engine of socio-economic development. Water is the driving force behind all the economic activities in the country, be it in agriculture, mining, hydropower generation, tourism, and indeed many other economic ventures. For instance, access to clean drinking water and adequate sanitation, access to clean drinking water and adequate sanitation forms the foundation for the fulfillment of basic needs and contributes to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Further, Mr. Speaker, at the global level, the United Nations, particularly under the SDG number 6, recognizes that access to clean water and sanitation is fundamental to the achievement of socio-economic development of any member state. In the President's address to this August House, he underscored the critical importance of safeguarding our water supply and sanitation infrastructure against vandalism. It is indeed depressing to witness the malicious destruction of these essential installations, which not only disrupts the provision of services, but also undermines the well-being of our communities. Further, the President emphasized the importance of ensuring the provision of clean and safe water, as well as adequate sanitation services to prevent outbreaks of waterborne diseases such as cholera and typhoid. The commitment to this cause is not merely a matter of public health, but also a fundamental obligation to uphold the dignity of our citizens and to ensure their right to social justice and equal treatment. Mr. Speaker, through the implementation of the National Urban and Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Programs, in line with the aspiration of the 8th National Development Plan in general, and specifically strategic development areas 1 and 2, which are economic transformation and job creation, and human and social development. The ministry, my ministry rather, will focus on construction and rehabilitation of dams, boreholes, pipe-to-water schemes, and other related infrastructure to ensure sustained water availability for social and productive use. In order to increase investment in the water sector, government will also facilitate private sector investment in water and sanitation. And in doing that, Mr. Speaker, we desire to make our sector attractive to the private sector. I wish to state that the ministry has reached an advanced stage in reviewing policy and legal frameworks such as the National Water Policy and Water Supply and Sanitation Act that will guide the implementation of projects through public-private partnerships. Mr. Speaker, in light of the pressing challenges I have alluded to, I wish to commend the concerted efforts made by government, the guidance by His Excellency the President, and indeed in collaboration with the relevant stakeholders to address these issues comprehensively. Through strategic interventions and targeted initiatives, significant strides have been made towards enhancing the resilience of our water supply and sanitation infrastructure, as well as improving access to clean water and sanitation services across the country. However, despite the progress achieved, sadly, Zambia still sits at 72% in terms of access, our people accessing clean water, and sanitation being at 54%. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, so much still remains to be done. We must redouble our efforts collectively with other stakeholders in our efforts to safeguard our water supply and sanitation infrastructure, strengthen preventive measures against vandalism, and ensure the sustainability of our water resources for future generations. Additionally, we must continue to prioritize the provision of clean water and sanitation services to underserved communities, thereby upholding their inherent dignity and promoting social equity. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to express my gratitude and that of our sector for the President's commitment to advancing the national values and principles. Let us reaffirm our collective resolve to confront the challenges ahead with determination and solidarity. Together, we can build a nation where access to clean water and sanitation is not just a privilege, but a fundamental right for all. Mr. Speaker, with these remarks, I wish to support the report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Northwestern Province.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for according me this opportunity on behalf of the people of Northwestern Province to comment on the speech delivered by His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, on the progress made in the application of national values and principles. Mr. Speaker, I'll be failing the people of Northwestern Province if I don't join my colleagues in congratulating His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, Finance Minister, his team, for successful debt restructuring and many more good works that this team has done. Mr. Speaker, I must put it on record that the speech by the President was very, very clear, and we must commend the New Dawn administration for the significant progress made in 2023 in line with our core national values and principles. Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt that national values and principles play a critical role in influencing our conduct as individuals and society as a whole. Further, Mr. Speaker, these values and principles guide government in the development and implementation of state policies. Mr. Speaker, a nation with its people who are morally upright usually develops fast. Mr. Speaker, you have seen all these things happening: debt restructuring, increase in CDF because we are morally upright as government. Mr. Speaker,
Yes, I'm upright.
under patriotism and national unity, the President reported that government had continued to promote local ownership of property and business ventures, while encouraging equitable partnerships with foreign investors. We must intensify sensitization, Mr. Speaker, of artisan and small-scale mining licenses holders. Mr. Speaker, against selling their licenses because doing so would perpetuate poverty in our society. Indeed, we have been lamenting, Mr. Speaker, that Zambians must hold mining licenses, and this administration, under the leadership of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, Mr. Speaker, has responded positively to that call. We must thank the New Dawn administration for creating that environment for Zambians to hold mining licenses. Mr. Speaker, the President spoke about the enhanced CDF. Mr. Speaker, this CDF has turned our constituencies, our provinces, into a construction site. Mr. Speaker, when CDF was at 1.6 million kwacha, our children, especially us MPs from rural areas of Northwestern Province, some of our children used to learn under the trees. Some of our children used, Mr. Speaker, to sit on logs. Some of our children, Mr. Speaker, used to sit on the floor. But, Mr. Speaker, with this enhanced CDF, Mr. Speaker, our children are able to learn in a conducive environment and are sitting on desks. Mr. Speaker, the President, under Sustainable Development, reported that Mr. Speaker, protect me. There's one honorable member who would want to distract me. Mr. Speaker, reported that 645,000 trees were planted on 538 hectares of land across the country. He appealed to all Zambians to participate in the planting of 2 million trees by 2028. And my province, Mr. Speaker, in response to that call, held a tree planting exercise in Mwenlunga district in Chifi Ntambu's area on 21st March 2024 as a province. We will continue, Mr. Speaker, to plant more trees to mitigate the effects of climate change. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, allow me to support the speech by His Excellency, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia, on the application of national values and principles delivered to this august House. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Minister for Western Province.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to say a few words on the good speech which was delivered by our President on the 15th of March. Firstly, I would like to congratulate him and the Minister of Finance and the economic team for their having managed to restructure the Zambian debt. Mr. Speaker, what they have just done is a reflection of capacity, education, and the resilience, as opposed to glib talking and pontification which has no basis. Now, coming to the speech, I'll start with the patriotism and national unity to say that because we are talking on the progress, it means that we have to refer to the past. And I start by saying, Mr. Speaker, it is only in Zambia where people who are in power, they wreck the economy and all other facets of governance, and then they turn around to tell those people who have taken over from them that don't refer to the past, just resolve our problems. I don't think, Mr. Speaker, that makes sense and fair, and this is the reason why we at the UPND, we shall always refer to the past, because it's the past which has given us the problems of where we are, and it's where we are where we will determine our future. So we cannot be told not to talk about the past. Indeed, we agree with the President on page 5 of his speech that this country is founded on the virtues of patriotism and national unity. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, these virtues were not promoted. Instead, they were put away by the previous regime in pursuit of interests that were inimical to the general will. They arrogantly perpetuated division amongst our people, especially through discrimination in employment and business opportunities. It is a known fact that appointments and promotion to key government positions were preserved of certain categories of people at the expense of others. The result of this was the promotion of mediocrity, as opposed to rewarding talent and giving all Zambians an equal opportunity to thrive in their businesses or professions. Now, under the new Dawn government, with proper leadership, which knows what it's doing, and in order to enhance national unity and patriotism, recruitment into the public sector is done openly and transparently in all the districts across the country to ensure equal opportunity for all citizens. Mr. Speaker, in the previous order, job adverts in the press were put aside. Recruitment into the public sector was via word of mouth, and the subsequent selection was based on patronage and corruption. What a shame. Surprisingly, we hear that our colleagues who destroyed this country want to come back so that they can continue to sow the seeds of disunity by perpetuating their bad vices of marginalizing others in employment practices, staff promotion, award of business tenders, grants, and other opportunities. Unfortunately for them, Zambians have seen the remarkable progress which this new Dawn administration has made in fostering patriotism and national unity in the past 2.5 years. Our citizens are not naive to fail to distinguish light from darkness or day from night. Mr. Speaker, we also want to commend the President for encouraging our citizens to pay their fair share of taxes. We say so because people have seen and appreciate the new Dawn administration in the way their taxes are being utilized prudently through the distribution of resources equally and equitably across the country, as evidenced through the enhanced CDF, which is now 30.6 million. The Treasury also released the CDF to all constituencies across the country. At the same time, unlike in the past where it was a preserve of the constituencies which were perceived to be stronghold of the ruling party, then, even though the taxes were contributed by all citizens. Mr. Speaker, it is evident that our taxes are working for everyone. On this basis, we write behind the President's call on page 7 of his speech to urge individuals and business to be tax compliant, because that is the surest way to fulfill the assurance he made in this August House that the CDF will be increased every year going forward. One other key achievement of the new Dawn government through the CDF program is that the rural-urban migration has reversed. Citizens no longer rush to town to look for opportunities, On the contrary, people are now staying in the rural areas, and those in towns are going back to their roots. Democracy and constitutionalism. Contrary to the enemies of progress who continue to insinuate that the democratic space in this country is shrinking, we agree with the President that this new Dawn administration instead is making consistent and steadfast efforts to promote the virtues of democracy, good governance, and the rule of law. It's no wonder that under this administration, Zambia has been named among the top 3 most democratizing countries in the world by VDEM. Mr. Speaker, let me highlight some of the practical steps which this new Dawn administration has made in furtherance of democracy, good governance, and the rule of law. While the previous regimes had shut down some media houses, this administration has not closed any, and instead it has licensed 44 new radio stations and 18 new television stations. Surprisingly, the opposition parties who enjoy a favorable coverage from these private media houses, including the public broadcaster, are the ones claiming that the democratic space is shrinking. What sort of hypocrisy is this, Mr. Speaker? Number 2, abolishing of the criminal defamation of the President in the Penal Code. This provision existed from the UNIP administration until 23 December 2022, when His Excellency the President took a bold step to abolish it. Number 3, enactment of the Access to Information Law. This is yet another bold step made by this administration after successive governments gave a deaf ear to the advocates of the civil society organization, media organization, the church, and the political parties for over 2 decades. And number 4, removal of cadres from markets and bus stops. People are now able to conduct their businesses freely in our markets and bus stops without any fear of harassment or attack, irrespective of the party they belong to, support, or sympathize with. This was not the case 2.5 years ago. Number 5, peaceful, free, and fair election. It is a fact that now elections are being held in a peaceful environment, free from violence. Gone are the days when elections were treated as a matter of life and death. Now it is a competition of ideas, not pangas. Opposing political parties are able to canvass for votes in the same space without violence or indeed any bloodshed. Number 6, continuous voter registration in all the 10 provinces. Contrast this with the tactics employed by the past regime prior to the 2021 general election, where eligible voters in the areas perceived to be opposition strongholds were disenfranchised, while inflating the registration in areas perceived to be strongholds for the then ruling party by registering even the underage, among other schemes which were used. It is no wonder that someone at that time was confident that he would hand over power to himself. Number 7 and last one, installation of 15 new FM transmitters in some rural districts of eastern, northern, Luapula, and Mchinga provinces in order to provide access to the ZNBC signal for Radio 1 and 2. Human dignity, equality, and social justice. We agree with the President on page 10 of his speech that the new Dawn administration has prioritized the provision of clean water and adequate sanitation, access to electricity, social protection, and youth empowerment, as well as maternal health services in order to uplift the livelihoods of all our people. In addition, this government has scaled up the grid extension projects in order to electrify the rural areas, which others failed to do in 10 years. Now, there is no need for people to relocate to the urban areas or the line of rail simply to access power. For instance, in Western Province, the Rural Electricity Authority is working on grid extension projects in Kalundwana and Nakato in Narikwanda constituency, Shimano in Nkeyema, Mweke, Kwiche, and Makapaira in Luena constituency, Banyutu in Ruampa constituency, Natukoma in Shangombo constituency, as well as Mitete. Furthermore, the authority has so far signed a memorandum of understanding with 10 local authorities in the province in order to expand rural electrification through the CDF. With all this being done, how can the naysayers continue to pontificate that the New Dawn government is doing nothing? Madam Speaker, they should simply sit down. Mr. Speaker, I have run out of time. Good governor, we commend the President for providing leadership in the fight against past, present, and future corruption under his leadership. This administration...
Honorable Minister, wind up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Her Honor the Vice President, adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn.
As no notice of an item for debate on the motion of adjournment of the House has been received, I put the question. The question is that the House do now adjourn. Any debate, any objection? The question is agreed to. The House is now adjourned.
Good evening. You're still watching Parliament television. The House has just adjourned until tomorrow at 09 hours. We go straight into looking at business that has been considered on the floor of the House from the time it resumed at 14:30. Mr. Second Deputy Speaker did make one announcement in which he recognized the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Betu School in Lusaka District. Mr. Second Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, warmly welcomed the visitors to the National Assembly. After that announcement, the House went on to consider one private member's motion that was moved by Kawe Central Member of Parliament, Ms. Chrysosta Halwindi, titled Introduce Tree Planting Week, and so this motion was seconded by Ron Member of Parliament, Mr. Joe Ochibuye, and the members of Parliament did debate, and this motion was adopted. Thereafter, the House went on to consider 3 committee reports, which have all been adopted. After consideration of those committee reports, the House went on to consider the Constituency Development Fund Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2023, which came at a second reading stage. It was considered at second reading, and a division was called. Members of Parliament voted. The yes had 72, the noes had 43, and so committee stage of this bill is expected to be taken tomorrow. After that, the House went on to